In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 college football games happening on October 7, 2023, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games. So 2 picks for each game, 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 college football games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Rutgers versus Wisconsin. 2 dual-threat quarterbacks face off as the Rutgers Scarlet Knights travel to Camp Randall Stadium to take on the Wisconsin Badgers on October 7th. Luke Fickell is in his first year coaching the Badgers and has them holding steady with a 3-1 record. Wisconsin will be well rested after having a weekend off following their win over Purdue the week prior. Rutgers will look to defeat Wisconsin for the first time, as the Badgers are undefeated in the 4 games these Big Ten foes have faced each other, totaling 168 points against Rutgers 30. There are many similarities between these 2 Big Ten teams. First, both Wisconsin and Rutgers feature a dual-threat quarterback that effectively runs the ball and finds the end zone. Additionally, both quarterbacks are complemented by veteran, athletic running backs who rack up plays and yards. This will be a great opportunity for both defenses to demonstrate how good they are against this similar attack. Both Wisconsin and Rutgers score in the low 30 seconds on average. Efficiently, they both convert third downs a decent 45% of the time. Rutgers' 8 of 11 fourth down conversions demonstrate the Scarlet Knights' ability to maintain the ball and extend drives. They are similar on the defensive side of the ball as well. Most importantly, both teams have allowed less than 3 touchdowns, with Rutgers holding opponents to a paltry 13 points per game. The books have thrown chalk on this game, favoring Wisconsin by 2 touchdowns. There are 2 key reasons for this. First of all, the weight that Wisconsin brings playing at home typically brings a higher number. Secondly, in the 4 games that these 2 teams have faced off each other, Wisconsin has outscored Rutgers by 138 points. However, on paper, these 2 ball clubs are much closer in margin. Following their 24-point Week 4 defeat against Michigan, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights bounced back last week with a 52-3 win over football championship subdivision Wagner. Rutgers is now 4-0-1 against the spread and catching just about 2 touchdowns in Madison against the Badgers, who were idle last week. Prior to their bye, the Badgers defeated Purdue 38-17 in West Lafayette as Braylon Allen gained 116 yards on 16 carries with 2 scores. They are 3-1 straight up and 2-2 against the spread through 4 games. In games with a total so low and a spread over double digits, my initial look is always to the underdog, as points are extremely valuable in low-scoring contests. Rutgers has a rush rate over 63% excluding garbage time, which is a top 5 rate nationally. Its reliance on the rush could shorten this game and limit Wisconsin's possessions. The Scarlet Knights are a top 35 team in rushing predicted points added and 17th in expected points added per rush according to CFB graphs, while Wisconsin is 61st in rush success rate allowed, 81st in rush predicted points added allowed, 98th in rushing explosiveness allowed, and 111th in stuff rate excluding garbage time. Furthermore, Wisconsin has not been very efficient through the air despite Phil Longo's new system and a new quarterback in Tanner Mordecai, as the Badgers are outside the top 90 in passing predicted points added and 122nd in passing explosiveness. Wisconsin's defense has not been very efficient on early downs, which makes me believe Rutgers will have success sustaining drives and playing off its rushing attack. Rutgers has already faced tougher opponents and relatively held their ground. The Scarlet Knights are tough in the trenches, so the Badgers won't push them around easily. Along with that, Rutgers' stout rush defense will test Wisconsin's shaky passing game. On defense, Rutgers will keep this game competitive. There are also a lot of banged-up players on Wisconsin, and that may hamper them against a physical Rutgers squad. The reason that Wisconsin will still win the game outright is that Rutgers also cannot pass the ball. Davin Wimsatt may avoid sacks and turnovers, but his arm will need to show up eventually for the upset. Wisconsin can also stifle the run, which is all that the Scarlet Knights want to do. It'll be a tight game that the Badgers win at home, but Rutgers keeps themselves in the fight all day. Look for the Scarlet Knights to capitalize on their quality possessions and for them to keep this game within the number. The appropriate line here should be closer to a touchdown, so the Rutgers Scarlet Knights to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. It's no secret that both teams flaunt great defenses. Rutgers' defense is 10th in the nation, allowing a mere 268 yards per game. Wisconsin isn't too far behind them, allowing 374 yards. More importantly, both defenses are great against the run, with Rutgers allowing less than 100 yards per game and Wisconsin just a little more than that. Ultimately, both teams allow a total of 33 points per game combined. Importantly, both teams are a Big Ten-style run-first offense. This eats up a ton of clock as the offense holds snaps and lets the time run. This fact, in addition to the new college football clock rules that keep the clock running more often, leads to less plays run per game and a lower score. Like many games featuring opposing Big Ten teams not named Michigan or Ohio State, the book has assigned a low number on this game. With the reasons just mentioned, it is not difficult to see why, but in this instance the book has gone too low. Rutgers has scored an average 4 touchdowns per game through the first 5 games of the season, including 5 against Virginia Tech. Wisconsin has also averaged 4 touchdowns a game. Subtract 1 from both sides for the defensive strengths and you come in at 42 points. Add just 1 field goal and you are past the total. Look for both these teams to grind it out but find the end zone enough to push the score past the total. Over the projected total is our full game total pick. Washington State versus UCLA, a pair of teams in different situations as far as the crumbling Pac-12 goes, meet on the gridiron looking for a win in the City of Angels. The number 13 Washington State Cougars look to deliver another victory as they travel to take on the UCLA Bruins Saturday afternoon. Washington State had a bye week last week. They dropped number 14 Oregon State 38-35 at home in their previous game September 23rd, winning outright as a 3-point underdog. UCLA comes in off a bye themselves. They were defeated 14-7 on the road by number 11 Utah back on September 23rd and failed to cover the line as a 3-point underdog. In the all-time series between the schools, the Bruins own a 40-21-1 edge, including a ridiculous 67-63 win on the road in the most recent meeting on September 21, 2019. The Cougars have done nothing but impress me to this point in the season, dispatching Colorado State and Wisconsin before handling a strong Oregon State side 2 weeks ago to remain unbeaten on the year. Cam Ward has established himself as one of the best quarterbacks in college football, despite not getting a ton of accolades on a national level. Ward leads a Cougars passing attack that is 7th in success rate and 10th in expected points added per pass per CFB graphs, and those numbers have come against a couple of rock-solid defenses in Wisconsin and Oregon State. You're simply not going to stop Washington State through the air, and UCLA's defense ranks 69th in passing success rate, despite not having played a quarterback and offense anywhere near the Cougars' level. On the other side, I was high on the Bruins coming into the season, and my optimistic outlook on UCLA hasn't changed. I expected them to lose to Utah on the road 2 weeks ago, and that's exactly what happened. Overall, freshman quarterback Dante Moore still has an extremely high ceiling and raises the level of Chip Kelly's offense as a whole. However, the Bruins' passing attack is flat out terrible at the moment, ranking 115th in expected points added per pass and 94th in passing success rate. UCLA is also 74th in early downs expected points added, so I don't expect this team to put Washington State's defense on a consistent enough basis to score touchdowns on most of their possessions. That's the type of effort it will take to hang with an outstanding Washington State offense as the Cougars continue to sling the ball all over the field. UCLA has to hope that their offense shows up after being suffocated by Utah in their previous game. Fortunately for them, the Cougars aren't the caliber of the Utes defensively, though they can make some plays. The Bruins have been stingy defensively, but they haven't played an offense like Washington State yet this season. We've already seen Ward and the Cougars take down a good defensive team in Wisconsin at home in a game where they hung 31 points. I have to imagine that UCLA is going to be driven to bounce back from their first loss of the season. But this Washington State team is sneaky good, and I could see them giving UCLA a run here. Dante Moore's incredibly talented, but he's also really green as well. And I could see Washington State putting a scare into the Bruins if they don't win this game outright. UCLA is tough, but until we see Washington State slowed down, you have to give them the upper hand. One system that I took into account for this game is as follows: fading the home favorite following a game in which they scored less than 10 points nets you an return on investment greater than 15% over the last 18 years. This isn't necessarily predictive of the outcome, but it has been consistently winning, and I certainly still agree with the principle that this Washington State team is being slightly undervalued due to preseason priors. For what it's worth, it's not like UCLA has much of a home field advantage at the Rose Bowl either, so the Washington State Cougars to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. There is some concern around Ward and his ability to get the offense in a continued rhythm. Inside the 20s, we just haven't seen enough from the Bruins to trust them to come away with 6. The Cougars moved the ball in seemingly effortless fashion in the first half, and their second half flatness nearly cost them the ball game. UCLA's defense should prevent any quick succession scores as we saw a week ago, and the Cougars have stalled in the red zone as well. After a high-flying performance last week, I expect Washington State's offense to come back down to earth as they face the Bruins defense, which is allowing just 12 points per game. Washington State enters this game having seen the overhit in 3 of their 4 games on the year. The Cougars blew past the total in their lone road contest this season, combining with Colorado State to tally 74 points in their opening game against a number of 53.5 points. UCLA has stayed under the total in 3 of their 4 games on the year. The Bruins split their 2 home games in relation to the total. They combined with Coastal Carolina for 40 points against a number of 67, while totaling 66 points in the win over North Carolina Central against a number of 60.5 points. This one may not be a track meet like previous meetings. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. Virginia Tech versus Florida State. The Virginia Tech Hokies collide with the Florida State Seminoles in an Atlantic Coast Conference showdown on Saturday afternoon. The Hokies collected a home win against Pittsburgh in their Atlantic Coast Conference opener. The Seminoles posted a road win against Clemson and had their bye last week. These rivals last met in 2018 in a game Virginia Tech won. The fact that Florida State found themselves in nearly an identical situation a year ago off the Clemson game bye-week combo and passed it with flying colors really alleviated any real concerns I have about the Seminoles coming out sluggish or rusty. The energy should be there from the crowd, with it being the first home game for Florida State since September 9th, and from there it won't take much for the Seminoles to get the ball rolling on a blowout. The Hokies' defense just hasn't seen anything like what this Florida State attack will throw at them from a talent standpoint, and unless the back door swings open for them late, Virginia Tech's offense isn't set up to have tremendous success either. 3 turnovers in 2 road games for the Hokies also suggests they won't be winning the turnover battle in all likelihood, and those splash plays and extra possessions that were there for them last week against Pittsburgh just won't be there this week. The Virginia Tech Hokies won the Atlantic Coast Conference opener last week, but it was against a struggling Pittsburgh squad who has yet to beat in Football Bowl subdivision opponent this season. The Hokies lost by 19 points to Rutgers. Florida State has an elite squad and remains undefeated, including victories against LSU, who they defeated by 21 points, and Clemson. Furthermore, Virginia Tech doesn't have a good enough offense to stay in this game. They have scored 17 or fewer points in 3 of their last 4 games. They only managed 17 points against Marshall of the Conference USA. The Seminoles' defense held LSU to 24 and Clemson to 24. Quarterback Devin Travis is a great talent and registered 288 passing yards against Clemson. He has only thrown 1 pick. Virginia Tech is 2-3 with wins over Pittsburgh and Old Dominion and losses to Purdue, Rutgers, and Marshall. The Hokies are a solid team that has a chance at a bowl game with a few more wins. Florida State is 4-0 with wins over LSU and Clemson. The Seminoles also blew out Southern Miss and played a tight one against Boston College, but a win's a win. They still have a tough schedule remaining with Syracuse, Duke, Wake Forest, Miami, and Florida still on the schedule. They only have 2 games left against teams with losing records in Virginia Tech and Pitt. Florida State needs to use this game as a tune-up before they get into the meat of their schedule, and Virginia Tech wants to play spoiler and knock off a top 5 team. Florida State has looked very good on offense, averaging 43 points per game and 427.3 yards per game. The Seminoles' defense, on the other hand, has not been so good, allowing on average 22.5 points per game and 400.8 yards per game. Virginia Tech averages only 21.5 points per game and allows 25 points per game. The Hokies have not been a very good football team up until this point. Florida State's defense needs some work, but against an offense with these numbers, this could be exactly what they need. The Seminoles are 14-6 against the spread in their last 20 games and 10-0 straight up in their last 10 games. Virginia Tech is 2-3 against the spread this year and 3-10 straight up in their last 13 games, narrowly holding on versus Boston College, and being lucky to have a shot at winning versus Clemson last week has brought more question marks about good Florida State actually is for some. But in this kind of spot, against this type of opponent, I'll generally side with the more talented team. I think this will be exactly the tune-up Florida State needs, and although its defense has struggled, the Florida State Seminoles to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Virginia Tech was able to score 38 points last week. I don't expect 38 points, but the offense has definitely been stronger under Kyron Drones at quarterback in the last 3 games. The Seminoles' one weakness has been the pass defense, ranking 118th in the country. In addition, Florida State has already proven it can solve elite defensive squads. The Hokies' defense is good but not great. This is a unit that gave up 35 points against Rutgers. Florida State is consistently producing, scoring at least 31 points in all 4 bouts. The Seminoles actually had 2 bye weeks a season ago and went 2-0 over-under when they returned, scoring 35 and 41 points themselves. The 2021 to 2022 season at Florida State scored 59 points post-bye, and their post-bye games in 2019 to 2020 finished with 57 and 59 total points respectively. That's a run that's 4-1 over-under in a post-bye spot for Florida State, whether they've been good or bad as a team overall. The over is also 5-0 in the Seminoles' last 5 home clashes. That's the side I've got to go with on this total this week, because if we get that dominant win from the Seminoles, 40-plus points is easily on their radar. The Hokies' offense would only need to punch in a score or 2 to do their part in cashing an over ticket, and that can always be a little easier if there is extended garbage time as that scenario would bring. I expect a higher scoring game. Over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed. Subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.